Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. A'udhu billahi minashaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli waj'al li waziran min ahli Haruna akhi ushdud bihi azri wa yashriku fi amri kay nusabbihaka kathira wa nadhkuraka kathira innaka kunta bina basira. اللهم اغفر ذنوبنا اللهم ارحمنا اللهم ارحمنا جلينا اللهم استخدمنا في خدمة القرآن والإيمان والإسلام بالسعادة والسلامة والصحة والعافية والإخلاص والصبر والسكينة اللهم ارنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وارنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه وصل اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. We will continue our studies from the rays, and here we are on the screen. We will start from the fifth truth. And please, Brother Colin.
Okay.
Okay.
You want me to read? Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The fifth truth. The fifth truth perceived by our traveler at the second stage. The existence in the entirety of the cosmos, its pillars and parts, and all the beings contained in it, of the most perfect order and regularity, the sameness of the substances and purposive beings that are the means of the rotation and administration of that vast kingdom and are connected to its general scheme. The fact that the divine names and deeds that are at work in that magnificent city, that vast exhibition, encompass and comprehend all things or most things, despite their being one within the other, and of the same nature, and the same, and there being the same name and deed in every place. The fact that the elements and species that are the means for the administration, inhabiting, and construction of that well-adorned palace cover the whole face of the earth in their diffusion, despite their being one within the other, of the same nature, and the same element, and the same species being found everywhere. All of this demands, proves, and affirms necessarily and self-evidently the following. The maker and disposer of this cosmos, the monarch and nurturer of this realm, the master and builder of this palace, is one unique soul. He has neither like nor peer, neither minister nor aid. He has neither partner nor opposite. He has neither inability nor deficiency. Yes, order is in itself a perfect expression of unity. It demands a single orderer. It leaves no place for the assignment of partners to God, the source of dispute and dissension. There is a wise and precise order inherent in all things, whether universal or particular, from the total scheme of the cosmos and the daily and annual rotation of the earth, down to the physiognomy of man, the complex of senses in man's head, and the circulation of white and red cells in man's blood. Nothing other than one absolutely powerful and absolutely wise can stretch out its hand intentionally and creatively toward anything, nor interfere with it. On the contrary, all things are recipients, means of manifestation, and passive. Now, ordering, the pursuit of certain purposes, and the bestowal of regularity with a view to certain benefits can be done only by means of knowledge and wisdom, and performed only with will and choice.
I think we can stop here. If needed, we can continue. Let me see the continuation part. Continuing on the same subject, but let's come back to the beginning of the fifth truth, and we can I ask you, what did you get the gist of this text that we read today? What is the fundamental structure of the reasoning here?
First, that it's very complex and it's very rich and it's very layered and very deep, which is itself, I think, a reflection of what he's describing, really. It's as though his writing actually mirrors the complexity and interconnectedness and mutual dependence of the different component parts of the creation that he's describing. It's very rich, and I think maybe if you take it bit by bit, you'll be able to unpack it more easily, rather than, I could easily say, well, for me, what I got from that was the interconnectivity of everything, the interrelatedness of everything, the mutual dependence of everything, the complexity of everything, the fact that everything is within everything else and that everything intersects, the sameness of many things within the whole nexus of difference, of difference and variety and differentiation. There's so much going on really in this fifth truth. I think you would benefit from breaking it down into component sentences or passages.
So would you like to go over paragraph or the text paragraph by paragraph?
Well, I can read section by section, as it's been cut into sections here by the translator. We can do that, and you can maybe give your ideas about each section. So the first paragraph is he's looking at what is going on in the creation and what that demands, what it necessitates for all of that to happen. So the first sentence, he's saying at the end of the second stage, the traveler looks at the existence in its entirety of the whole cosmos, its pillars and parts and all the beings contained in it, of the most perfect order and regularity. So that first section there is looking at the whole with its component parts. He's looking, this is what I understand anyway, he's looking at the whole cosmos, and he's telling us that the cosmos comprises various pillars and parts and components, which are all joined together with perfect order and regularity into one vast overarching whole. And then he goes on in the second section, the sameness of the substances and purposive beings that are the means of the rotation and administration of that vast kingdom and are connected to its general scheme. So he's telling us that this is a vast kingdom. In other words, it's something that is structured and ordered and owned and ruled. A kingdom is ruled by a king. So what I understand from the second part here, he's now looking at the sameness, the similarity of the various beings and components and substances which make up this kingdom and which are the means of the operating systems that keep this kingdom going. He says the means of the rotation and administration of that vast kingdom. So these different pillars and parts and components are characterized by similarity. So there's a similarity between them. And I think that similarity is important. Also, there is purpose. Everything that is coming together there in mutual need, in a sense, to bring about the means of the rotation and administration of the kingdom, they are characterized by a similarity. And they're also characterized by purpose.
Can you please give us a simple example about similarity? I mean, the things apparently that every tree is different, every animal is different, etc. But there is a common point, isn't it, among them? For example, living, having life, growing, getting old, dying. Yeah, for example, which attracts my attention a lot, every being has a skin, every being has a shape. The similarity, where do you see the similarity? In which respect similarity is important?
I see similarity in systems, particularly in systems such in the respiration system. All living beings are characterized by their possession of respiration systems. And even though beings are very, very different, so you can move from a plant to an animal to a human being, they all respire, they all have a respiration system, they all procreate, they all breathe, all of the things which make them living, and all of the things which also denote their need are similar. They all need the same things. So respiration system is to be able to deliver oxygen to them. Their procreation system is to enable them to multiply and to leave behind offspring, which is again a need. So all of the things which join them, actually, they are joined by their needs, by their deficits, by their lacks. And that also joins them together. They're joined together by the fact that those things which are given to them to fulfill those needs are very, very similar in each of the different cases. So you can move from one species to another and you will find a lot of difference, but they're also connected by these convergences, which are convergences of need and also convergences of means of fulfillment of need. So they all need the same thing. They're all being fulfilled in the same way. And yet there is a lot of difference between them.
What is actually, there are, Suhail wrote something, Fariha wrote something, and I have a question as well, in order to really understand and get the deep meaning that the message, the text is trying to convey to us. So Suhail says, to add to what Colin is saying, using the creation out there and seeing its interconnectivity and drawing a conclusion about must be one unique soul, unity in multiplicity. Although they are different, what I understood from Suhail, if I am wrong, please correct me, Suhail, or anybody in the room, everything seems to be different. For no one can say that a bird is like a fish. No, but at the same time, they have their unique soul characteristics, but at the same time, they are interconnected to each other. As Colin was saying, that they are similar, but at the same time, they have a common, if you like, principles of existing in the world. After reading Fariha, we are in need to be given existence. Is the similarity? Oh, I think this is the fundamental one. Everything needs to be given existence. It is another, common, very common, universe-wide similarity. And living beings need to be given life again. But my question is, as an extension to what Suhail and Fariha said, what is the significance of this aspect, this appearance of the universe? What are we expected to draw a conclusion from this reality? I think you have a lot to say.
I can get three things from this on first reading. One, I don't think is the thing that you're looking for. but it may impinge on it, it may impact on it, and that is the mutual dependence of things, the interaction and the mutual dependence of things, which actually shows that they are all dependent. And mutual dependence actually indicates dependence. If two things are mutually dependent, it's like saying that one subjugates the other and the other one subjugates it at the same time. So you've got two things that are in need of each other and at the same time subjugating each other. And that for me is a contradiction. So one thing I get from this is that mutual dependence, interdependence, the interdependence of the components of this wonderful structure that is the universe actually indicates the absolute dependence of each of those component parts. That interdependence is apparent in actual fact, because you can't subjugate and be subjugated at the same time. So that's the first thing I get from it. The second thing I get from it is that from the convergences, from the similarities of all of the systems and all of the component parts, all of the pillars, and all of the parts and beings contained in the universe, the convergences and similarities suggest that they all look to the same source of being for their existence and for the continuance of their existence. As for the divergences and the differences and the individual uniqueness of each of those individual pillars and parts and beings and components, if we examine them carefully, we will find that each of them is unique, absolutely unique. Even the grains and seeds that we look at, which seem similar, or the sperms, if you look in a microscope at sperms swimming around, or even identical twins, they are still sui generis. They are still unique beings. And those divergences and that uniqueness shows you that the source of existence that we talked about, and we concluded that the source of existence is one, from the convergences, from the similarities, that source of existence is both one and uniquely connected to all beings at all times. So the universe is not a conveyor belt. It's not a photocopy machine. It's not that the source of existence creates all of these things and then lets them to their own devices. The uniqueness of every single being militates against that notion. There cannot be, that source of existence must be present and active, for want of a better word, and creating and recreating at all moments because of that uniqueness. So the difference and the similarity, they go to prove two very important things about this source of existence. Whatever this source of existence is, it is unique and singular. It is one. And it is constantly giving existence. That's what I seem to see happening in this fifth truth.
They are, this situation, you categorize them into three sections: the mutual interdependence each other. It's very significant, really. So it demonstrates that their existence cannot be realized by themselves, because they are dependent on other things. The dependent things cannot give existence to itself, because itself is dependent for its existence on something else. It is in need of something else. If someone is in need of, if something is in need of another thing, it cannot be the source of existence of anything, let alone itself. So these all point that their source of existence must be a one who must be operating over everything at the same time and controlling them, employing them, positioning them in such a way that conscious human beings should not have any doubt that they may be accidentally happening. All these contradictory, but at the same time complementary qualities coexisting, converging at the same time. It is really amazing to see the universe has not giving any way to a doubt that it may happen by itself, it may happen haphazardly, accidentally. So we have to say that there is someone who must have infinite qualities operating over it. I see, but that is what I gathered. If I am missing something, please complete me. Otherwise, I will go to Suhail. Suhail's comment. Okay, Suhail, why not to express yourself? Okay, go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum. I was just quoting some of the conclusions Nursi was making in the text. For example, he says nothing other than one absolutely powerful and absolutely wise can stretch out its hand intentionally and creatively toward anything, nor interfere with it. On the contrary, all things are recipients, means of manifestation, and passive. Whereas you said they have no power in themselves to do anything, and they just are as they are on the account of one, as he says, who must be absolutely powerful and absolutely wise and absolutely willing. In that regards, all things are passive and merely manifestations of his qualities. And then he says also, it leaves no place for the assignment of partners to God. This is the source of dispute and dissension. I found that interesting in that I'm not sure exactly what he's referencing here, other than, what I could think of, at least personally, source of dispute and dissension in a couple of respects. One, if we were to take the opposite scenario, like as the Quran always does, presents things, and if things were on their own account, for example, the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets, the plants, the animals, human beings, insects, the environment, the atmosphere, they all exist on their own account, there would definitely be dispute and dissension. In other words, there wouldn't be any sort of mutual interdependence or reliance or interconnectivity. They would all be in conflict with one another, which is essentially, that's the only conclusion you can make if you took the opposite position, in that they all are their own unique being, and they all therefore are their own unique source, rather than attributing their source to an individual and unique and sole one. And in some respect, it also reflects in the fact of, philosophy of science, modern science, how all things are in conflict. That's largely what predicates, say, evolutionary theory, that things are in conflict and there's a survival of the fittest. Because primarily things are in conflict and dispute with one another, and who is the greatest or mightiest in power? No explanation of where that power comes from, but then that being will win out. And then he says, can be done only by means of knowledge and wisdom, performed only with will and choice. And that's, you don't see any of those qualities inherent to the things themselves. They manifest, as you said, as Colin said also, that you see knowledge, for example, in all things. There's a certain knowledge in the existence of a tree, certain knowledge in the existence of a human being, certain knowledge in the existence of a plant or an animal or an insect or the water or the mountains, or the stars. And that knowledge in each of those things is so vast. I mean, there are so many disciplines, so much study behind each of those individual things that they can fill books about what knowledge they can derive. But no one can ever say that that knowledge proceeds from the things themselves. Where does it come from? How does it happen? All the different aspects of knowledge manifest in different things. They never contradict one another. They never dispute with one another. They support one another. Therefore, their source, their author, must be the same one, the same unique soul one who must be absolutely knowledgeable and therefore absolutely wise and absolutely willing. So that's, and the last thing I was going to say was seeing sort of this mutual interdependence in the creation in and of itself. For example, in the human being, you see not only existence, you see an essence, you see life, you see knowledge, you see power, you see will. For example, I can know things, I can do things, I can choose things, I can feel things, I can think things. There's a form or a shape, as there are to all other things. And they all are sort of existing in harmony together, all of those qualities, within one singular point. Let's say human being, or a particle, or a cell. In some ways, it speaks to the source, the creator himself, in that his qualities, I wouldn't say, I don't know if interdependence is the right word, but they all act at once. In other words, the way in which he creates, all qualities are taken into account at the same time. And I can't do that. I can't necessarily, when I do something, take into account all possibilities and all qualities. For example, if I say something, maybe I don't take into account, is this really something merciful or just or wise to say? Maybe I'm somewhat cognizant of it a little bit, but nothing to the extent to which an absolutely unique one would be, in that all qualities can be taken into account and manifested in their proper way in this world. So that's what I wanted to say. Somebody's mic muted.
Yeah, well, this beautiful discussion, I'm sorry, I thought my mic was not muted, so it was muted. So it reminded me, this beautiful discussion, which really precisely hits the point, what the text is really teaching us. I was traveling on a ship, and as the propeller of the ship started working, huge chaotic thing appeared to be there at the back of the ship, so that the ship started slowly moving. And there was a person next to me who was a mathematician, and this person said, "Did you know that there is a way, if we have a huge computer, to calculate each of these water molecules' actions, which direction and the speed, etc. This seems to be chaotic. Everything is up and down, jumbling up and down." I was surprised that, can you calculate it? Yeah, it is possible, but for the moment, human beings are not able to calculate it, but it happens within a perfect order. It doesn't happen accidentally. If you really notice that the speed of the propeller really has a correlation or relationship with the water molecules jumping up and down. If it slows down, so the movement slows down, it means there are regularities between them. So we should understand that in this world, nothing is independently happening here by itself. Everything is interconnected, interrelated. Nothing can be singled out in its existence, saying that this has its own existence by itself, unique to itself. Yes, it is unique, but still, yet, it still exists within the harmony of the rest of the universe. So I highlighted this sentence. I think you all see on the screen how the author says, I think, nothing other than one absolutely powerful and absolutely wise can stretch out its hand intentionally and creatively towards anything, nor interfere with it. We know this, simply we know that nothing can really act, including human beings. That is amazing for me. It always comes to my mind, and I want to repeat it on many occasions, and now also I would like to repeat it. Even human beings are no exception subject to the order which is prevalent everywhere over a whole universe at the same time. This order, what's amazing for me again, another thing, this order is happening now and changing, continuously changing its operation. This change in its operation, it means new type of creatures are brought into existence. This is also taken place within an order. Nothing can get out of the order in both sense. Now within the order of the whole universe, and also during the change, we call it time, during this change of creation, act of creation, again, the same orderliness can be observable. It means nothing can miss out from this whole system of the universe. Human beings seem to be, to have free will, that we can choose it if we want, aren't we? As we want. Animals are restricted. Somehow they can choose too, but human beings are really free. That's how it seems to be. But we are choosing only by obeying the order, which is given. There's several options to us. We cannot go out of the given options. And these options are taking place again within the whole order of the universe. That amazes me. I am free, but at the same time, I'm not free because I cannot get out of the order. If a human being, which seems to be having a good volume of freedom compared to stones, etc., or winds, or galaxy, stars, galaxies, yes, we seem to be, but still we are also subject to the order. No one can get out of the control or the sovereignty of this absolutely powerful and absolutely wise one. That is what my conclusion was from the text we read today. Anybody else who would like to make a comment? Yeah, the last short paragraph also is interesting. or anything else you want to talk about the text, what attracts your attention, please. Now, shall I use the names? So what do you get, so since Colin was reading it, what do you get out of the, Suhail, are you raising your hand? Okay, Suhail, please go ahead. I wasn't taking notice of the hand signs.
Oh, so, okay. All I was going to say was, the emphasis can put, I find interesting, performed only with will and choice, can only by means of knowledge and wisdom and performed only with will and choice. In other words, this sort of interconnectedness and regularity and order. I can say that it's chaos, but that's sort of a self-contradiction, and people say it all the time that there's an order and regularity out there, but it's purely out of chance and chaos. Out of chaos comes order, and by chance, actually, by chance there is order, and by chance we're talking about chance. It's one of the great contradictions of modern philosophy and science, and yet it's sort of by a willful ignorance that there must be a will or a choice, a conscious choice, a wise choice, a knowledgeable choice. Just like how human beings operate and what I do, I don't choose things haphazardly. I choose things because I have a knowledge, maybe some sort of particular or very incomplete knowledge, and maybe some sort of incomplete wisdom or lack thereof, but nonetheless, everybody chooses something based off of those things. There's nothing chaotic in terms of maybe I make the wrong choice, but it's based on what I know and what I see to be wise, possibly. And yet, when it comes to the existence of the world and the order and regularity of the world, somehow that gets attributed to chance and chaos. But it's obvious that there must be a will and choice, but you cannot find that will and choice within the things themselves, because no thing has any inherent or intrinsic will and ability to choose, or any intrinsic knowledge or wisdom.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yes, of course. Don't ask me. Just go ahead.
On Sohail's point, I agree with you that no thing has will or choice or knowledge, but naturalists, if they don't attribute the obvious will and choice which exists and which no one can deny, if they don't attribute it to one omniscient, omnipresent, all-powerful creator, they have no choice but to attribute it to things themselves. And in the absence of their attribution of these qualities to a single creator, we see that there is this implicit attribution of knowledge and will and choice to the things themselves. Because if you read the naturalists' textbooks, you will see things like the apple tree does this, and the molecule does that, and the atom goes here, and the atom chooses to go there. They can't escape. There is clearly will and choice and knowledge in the creation, and there are only two possibilities. Either the things themselves possess these qualities, or these qualities are possessed by one possessor of absolute qualities. Now, the problem with attributing things to causes, to the things themselves, if you think of the incredibility, that is involved here, the incredulousness that is involved in a grain of salt. Let's think about a grain of salt. It's also known, salt is known as, I think it's sodium chloride, and it's made up of two elements, one sodium, one chloride. I don't want to go into the details of the chemistry involved because I'm not a scientist, but you probably know from your own sort of rudimentary knowledge of science, if you're not a scientist, because it's something that we were all taught at school. In order to make salt, we need sodium and chlorine. They have to work together. And the key factor in the creation of salt is that chemical reaction which takes place when sodium and chlorine bond chemically. Now, I don't think anyone can deny that the formation of salt is a purposeful act. And I don't think anyone would deny that the creation of salt requires power and knowledge and will. Because it's obvious, that something which shows artistry, as salt does, something which shows purpose and design cannot be the work of something that's powerless, ignorant, and constrained. But if you take the creator, the all-powerful, all-knowing creator out of the equation, and you deny his role, then you have no option but to attribute knowledge, power, and will to the sodium and to the chlorine. And those two chemicals, apparently with a fine sense of purpose, they're going to have to choose to come together in order to create this totally new structure, which is salt. And because all of the beings in the universe, as Nursi is saying, are interdependent, in order for causes to bring into existence entities which have relations with all other entities in the cosmos, they need to possess the ability not only to bring a single being into existence, but they need knowledge which is vast enough to give that being everything it needs to interact efficiently with everything else in the cosmos. So in short, in order to be able to create salt, both sodium and chlorine, I don't know how it's pronounced, sodium and chlorine, they would need to possess power, knowledge, and will in almost absolute amounts, in an absolute manner. Together with a sense of purpose, they would also need an all-encompassing awareness of all of the other connections of which salt will be part. Now, how is that scenario not an incredulous scenario? How possible is that scenario? Is it not impossible to imagine why these two supposedly knowledgeable, powerful, and free causal agents would be ready to sacrifice themselves in order to bring about salt? Because they would have to knowingly subjugate themselves to one another. And it would be a kind of suicide pact. They would have to annihilate themselves and annihilate each other in order to create this new being that we call salt. So why would a chlorine molecule, a chlorine atom, come together knowingly with a sodium atom and then together in this suicide pact kill each other and themselves in order to create salt? Now, it sounds very silly when I talk in terms of these things killing themselves, but it's even sillier to attribute absolute knowledge and power to these things. And if, as we're told, evolution creates the survival of the fittest, then what about chlorine and sodium, who come together in order to destroy themselves? Is that the survival of the fittest? So none of it makes sense. If you don't have a creator who is the absolute possessor of absolute perfections, then you have to go through this very silly narrative of attributing all of these attributes of perfection to causes themselves. And it just is too idiotic for words. So that's all I wanted to say.
So thank you. It's a beautiful conclusion. Thank you. The following actually paragraphs are kind of further explanations of the same pattern of thought. I just looked at it quickly at the book in front of my on my table there. So can we continue reading this? Some of the paragraphs. See if there is any point to discuss over it if we have not covered it yet. Yep, Colin.
You want me to read? Yeah, okay, no problem. Certainly, and in all events, this wisdom nurturing regularity, this infinitely varied ordering of the cosmos that before our very eyes assures various benefits, proves and affirms to a self-evident degree that the creator and disposer of all beings is one, an agent possessing will and choice. Everything comes into being through his power, assumes a particular state through his will, and takes on a particular form through his choice. The heat-giving lamp of this hospice that is the world is one. Its candle that is the basis for the reckoning of time is one. Its merciful sponge is one. Its fiery cook is one. Its life-giving beverage is one. Its well-guarded field is one, as well as 1,001 other instances of oneness. It follows from all these instances of oneness that the maker and master of this hospice is also one, that he is extremely generous and hospitable, for he employs numerous high-ranking and great officials to serve the animate guests of his hospice. Names such as all-wise, compassionate, giver of forms, disposer, quickener, and nurturer, the impresses and manifestations of which are to be seen at work in every corner of the world, attributes such as wisdom, mercy, and grace, and acts such as formation, disposition, and nurturing, are all one. They embrace every place in the utmost degree, each name and act being present there. They also complement the imprint of each other in such a way that it is as if those names and deeds were uniting in such fashion that power becomes identical with wisdom and mercy, and wisdom becomes identical with grace and life. For example, as soon as the activity of the name of quickener appears in a thing, the activity of numerous other names, such as creator, giver of form, and provider, also appears at the same instant, everywhere, and in the same system. This of a certainty and self-evidently establishes and proves that that which is designated by the names and the doer of the comprehensive deeds that appear everywhere in the same fashion must also be one, single, and unique. In this we believe, and to this we give our assent. The elements that are the substance and material of creation encompass the whole earth. Each of the species of creation that bears an imprint attesting unity is diffused throughout the earth in unity and, so to speak, conquers it. This also proves to the degree of being self-evident that those elements together with what they embrace and those species together with their separate members are the product and prosperity of a single being. They are the products and servants of so unique and powerful a one that he employs those vast and imperious elements as obedient servants, and those species diffused throughout the earth as well. Oh, sorry. Is that the continuation? As well-disciplined soldiers. Okay. Since this truth also has been established and explained in other places in the Risale-i-Nur, we content ourselves here with this brief indication. In summary of the witnessings that he derived from these 5 truths, through the superabundance of faith and the joy of divine unity, and in expression of his feelings, our traveler said to his heart, "Look upon the colored page of the cosmic book. See what forms the golden pen of power has traced. No dark point remains for the gaze of the heart's eye. It is as if God has inscribed his signs with light. Know too that the leaves in the world's book are dimensions infinite. The lines of time's events are works innumerable. Written on the workbench of the preserved tablet of reality, a meaningful embodied word is every being in this world. Listen also to this. When all things proclaim no God but God, they will in unison say, O truth and reality, and beseech in harmony, O living one. Yes, in all things there is a sign, pointing to the fact that he is one. Hearkening to this, his heart and soul affirmed the truth of what they heard, and said, yes, indeed. In brief allusion to the 5 truths of unity observed by our traveller through the world, our voyager through the cosmos, at this second stopping place it was said in the 2nd chapter of the 1st station, there is no God but God, the one, the unique, to whose unity and necessary existence points the witnessing of the truth of grandeur and sublimity, its perfection and comprehensiveness, the witnessing of the truth of the appearance of deeds in absolute fashion, in infinitude without any limitation except that of God's will and wisdom, the witnessing of the truth of the creation of beings in absolute multiplicity with absolute swiftness, the creation of creatures in absolute ease with absolute perfection, the origination of things made in absolute plenitude with utter perfection of artistry and value, the witnessing of the truth of the existence of beings in universal and comprehensive fashion, joined, interconnected, and interrelated, the witnessing of the truth of universal order, an order incompatible with the assignation of partners to God, the witnessing of the unity of the sources of cosmic order, a unity that clearly attests the unity of their maker, the unity of the names and deeds that comprehend and permeate the universe, and the unity of the elements and species dispersed over the face of the earth in imperious fashion.
Yeah, I think we can stop here. This is this italic paragraph is the conclusion of what we have read. I don't know whether you would like to make any comment on it, or what do you think? The time is up. Did anything attract your attention that you would like to, any of you in this virtual room now, would like to make any comment on anything that we read or wants to share with us? I think what we have covered today is summarized in the last paragraph, and also in our discussion, our friends commented on it. Inshallah, next week, Saturday, Sunday, or anytime, Monday, tomorrow, we have our chapter Kaf studies. Wednesday, we are studying Maryam, the story of Maryam in the Quran. And Saturday, resurrection. Alhamdulillah, we have, thank God, we have many opportunities to reflect on the truth of belief. Inshallah, we will meet next Saturday, Sunday, Monday, any day that we have these discussions again. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
And thank you very much for anyone who is present here and made comments, etc. Anyone contributed by being present, anything. Your presence is also a contribution. Alhamdulillah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Wa akhiru da'wahum an alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ameen. Inshallah, I see you next tomorrow, Monday, inshallah.